Gregg, I have heard you talking about the power to pray. How can we pray correctly?
Well, there's no incorrect way to pray. What the prayer researchers tell us is that there are different modalities of prayer. They're like tools in a toolbox. And there are different kinds of prayer that allow us to accomplish different kinds of things. Some of them are we've known about in the past. So the most common form of prayer, for example, is called a prayer of supplication. It's where we feel helpless or we feel powerless. So we say, "Dear God, you know, if you let my car get to the gas station before I run out of gas, I will never let my gas tank get this low again." So that's a prayer where we feel powerless, we feel helpless, and we've all had those kinds of prayers. There are petitionary prayers, what are called petitionary prayers, where we petition the Lord. So, for example, petition God. So there are teachings that are called the I am teachings, for example. So we say, "Mighty I am. I petition for the right to heal and be healed now and in all past, present, and future manifestations." So that is a petitionary kind of prayer where you're claiming a certain outcome. So we're very familiar with those kinds of prayers, but there has always been a prayer, a modality of prayer that is not accounted for in traditional prayer studies. And it is a prayer that is based in feeling, and it is feeling as if the outcome is already accomplished. So rather than asking for a prayer to be answered, we approach the prayer with the feeling as if the prayer is already answered, and the feeling of gratitude and appreciation as if the prayer is already answered. Elizabeth, I often illustrate this mode of prayer through sharing an experience that I had. I live in a rural area in northern New Mexico, in the high deserts of New Mexico, and we are surrounded by indigenous population here. This has been their land for thousands of years. I had the opportunity in the early 1990s. A friend of mine, a Native American friend, asked me if I wanted to join him in a prayer of rain because we were in a severe drought. For 50 years, they said that the elders had never seen the kind of drought that was happening. And so I said, yes, I'd love to see this prayer. So I had an expectation of what I thought I would see: dancing and chanting and, you know, Native American stuff. And I was not prepared for what I saw, because I met my friend and we walked across a huge field of high desert sage, beautiful sage. It smells so beautiful. And we arrived at an ancient medicine wheel. It's a circular wheel that is defined by the rocks that were put there by the ancestors. We don't even know who built this medicine wheel. And my friend, his name was David. I was not prepared for what I saw. He simply, he took off his shoes. He stepped into that prayer wheel, that medicine wheel. He closed his eyes. He had his hands in the prayer mudra in front of his heart. He honored all of his ancestors. He honored all of the directions, the 6 directions, north, south, east, west, up and down. And then he was silent just for a moment. And then he turned and he looked at me and he said, "I'm hungry. Do you want some food? Do you want to have lunch?" And I said, "Yes." But I said, "I thought you were going to pray for rain." And this is the reason I'm sharing this story. He turned and he looked at me and he said, "No." He said, "If I prayed for rain, the rain could never happen." He said, because the moment we pray for something to happen, we have just told the universe that something does not exist. And I thought about that. When we ask for abundance, or we ask for the perfect relationship, what we're saying to the universe is that abundance isn't here now. And I said to David, I said, if you did not pray for rain, what did you do when you closed your eyes? And he said, when I closed my eyes, I felt the feeling as if the rain has already happened. He said, I felt the feeling of what it feels like to walk through my Pueblo village and smell the smell of the rain as it rolls off the earthen walls in our Pueblo, the adobe walls. He said, I felt the feeling of the mud under my feet because there has been so much rain. And I gave thanks of appreciation and gratitude for the rain that has already happened. So that is a very, very powerful way of thinking, Elizabeth. It's a very different way. So I'm not saying that there is any other mode of prayer that is correct or incorrect. It just depends upon what the goal is. And this is another tool to add to our toolbox of prayers. It is called feeling-based prayer, using our senses. David used his senses. He used his smell to smell the rain. He used his feet to feel the mud. He used his heart to feel the appreciation and the gratitude. The more of our senses that we can incorporate, that becomes the language that communicates to the field that connects all things. And that is our prayer. Our prayer is the feeling. The feeling is the prayer.
You didn't end the story.
So the rest of the story, we had lunch. By the time I got to my home, I saw something I had not seen. I had not seen since I lived on that land, and the elders had not seen for many years. Big black clouds were coming in over the Sangre de Cristo mountains. So we live, the Sangre de Cristos run north-south and become the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, same mountains. So big black clouds came in and it started to rain. Excuse me, it rained and rained and rained. It rained all that night. It rained the next morning. It rained the next afternoon. It rained so much, the roads were flooded, the fields were flooded, the cattle were stranded, the crops were flooded. And I called David on the phone and I said, this is a mess. I said, you know, what's going on? And he was quiet just for a moment. And he said, Greg, this is the part of the prayer the ancestors never shared with us. They never told us how to make it stop raining once it begins to start. He says, they told us how to bring the rain. They didn't tell us how much rain to bring or how to stop the rain. And so that was my experience. Now, I have to tell you, as a scientist, I cannot say scientifically that David's prayer made the rain occur. I cannot say that. As a scientist, what I have to say is that there is a high correlation between the time the prayer occurred and when those clouds came in, it began to rain. There's a very high correlation there. So if it happened only once, you know, maybe we would call it a miracle. But there are many anecdotal stories, and you hear this over and over again, of native people in the Andes Mountains of southern Peru, when the forest fires threatened to destroy Machu Picchu. The firefighters came in from Australia, the firefighters came in from the United States, from all over South America. They could not stop the fire. And it looked like the fire was going to destroy Machu Picchu. A native shaman, a Quero shaman, came in from the Quechua community, came in. He performed a ceremony and did a prayer, and all of a sudden, big clouds formed over Machu Picchu. And it was the rain from the sky that put the fire out. So, you know, and again, I cannot prove that scientifically, that prayer caused the rain, but you see these things happen again and again, and you say that you have to say there is a relationship, there is an effect that's happening. So.